Welcome back to The Deep Dive. Today we're looking at a whole stack of expert commentary on artificial intelligence. And our mission, well, it's pretty simple. Cut through all the noise, all the hype, and figure out what the real economic speed limit might be.
Yeah, we definitely need that reality check. I mean, you listen to some folks, especially maybe in Silicon Valley, and their predictions are just dizzying. They talk
Yep.
about AI driving this sudden explosive economic takeoff, 20% annual growth, maybe more. The world changes in like 3 years.
Right.
But the sources we've looked at, they paint a very different picture. They contrast that high-speed vision with something much more, let's say, sobering. It's grounded in how technology actually spreads through the economy.
And that contrast, that friction, that's what we want to explore today. We're not really debating if AI is a big deal. It clearly is transformative. The question is how fast? How fast can this stuff actually filter into our huge, complicated, human global economy?
Yeah.
The consensus we've pulled out seems to be that this promised growth, it's going to be much, much slower than the hype suggests. And the reason? Fundamentally, it comes down to bottlenecks. Institutional ones, human ones.
That's the absolute key. The technology might feel exponential, but the institutions, the organizations that have to actually use it, they're linear, maybe linear on a good day.
Okay, so let's put a number on this right away. This projected slowdown. The expert view seems to be that AI will boost economic growth, but by about half a percentage point per year, give or take.
Right, over the next 30 or 40 years.
Which, okay, isn't nothing. It's actually immense over decades, but it's definitely not revolutionary month to month.
Exactly. Over 40 years, that does fundamentally change global wealth, global power, but quarter to quarter, you won't feel it like a revolution. And the reason for this, well, this more gentle pace, it's largely institutional inertia. Things just take time.
But how big are these sectors that are, kind of immune to rapid change? Are we talking small niches or like major chunks of the economy?
Oh, we're talking major chunks, vast, slow-moving parts of the institutional world. Think about government consumption. That's around 18% of the U.S. economy right there.
Wow.
Healthcare, nearly 20%. Education adds another, 6 or 7%? You start outing in the nonprofit sector, too. You're looking at almost half the economy that just doesn't, and maybe can't, move fast.
That is a huge anchor dragging on any revolutionary tech. So if we apply that bottleneck idea, practically speaking, how quickly could AI really shake up, say, a curriculum planning committee at your average state university?
Well, look, they'll probably commission a report. And that report will sound amazing. It'll sound exactly like it was written by GPT-5 or whatever it's cutting edge then. Eloquent, insightful, full of recommendations.
Yeah.
But the implementation, that's where it hits the wall. Layers of bureaucracy, internal politics, maybe union rules, just resistance to change. The intelligence to know what to do might be there thanks to AI, but the system's actual ability, its will to execute that change, often frozen.
Yeah, that rings true. It makes me think of that economics term. When one part of the economy gets super productive, but the rest doesn't keep up, what happens to costs then?
You're talking about the cost disease. That's exactly what we run into.
Yeah.
See, labor, skilled or unskilled, is basically one big interconnected market, right?
Okay.
So when the AI sector gets hyper-productive, the wages they can afford to pay their top people, they soar. But since the talent pool isn't infinite, eventually those high salaries start pulling up wages everywhere for everyone.
Wait, so let me get this straight. My doctor, maybe their productivity hasn't actually doubled because of AI yet, but their golf pro, their wages might still go up just because the tech sector is booming. That feels counterintuitive.
You absolutely hit the nail on the head. It is counterintuitive, but that's the reality. Your local barista, the musicians in a string quartet, they can't really scale their output massively with current AI, right?
Right.
But their labor costs still rise because they're competing indirectly in that same labor market.
So you get cost inflation in those sectors.
Precisely. And that eats into the overall net growth because maybe half the economy is just struggling to cover rising wages without getting the same productivity kick.
Okay, this raises a really interesting theoretical point then. If raw intelligence, thanks to AI, is suddenly becoming cheap and abundant, what becomes the new limiting factor? Why doesn't the whole system just take off?
That's the core idea of the constraint shift. It's a classic economic principle.
Yeah.
When one key factor of production, let's call it intelligence here, suddenly gets way cheaper or more available, then the other things you need to actually do stuff become the real bottlenecks. The constraints shift. It's no longer about how smart you are. It's about everything else.
Like what, for example?
Well, energy supply, for one. Can we power all this AI? Outdated regulations, can the legal system keep up? Human limitations, attention spans, decision fatigue, just plain old management skill.
Mm.
And maybe the biggest one, a lack of institutional courage to make big changes.
So the returns on just adding more intelligence start to diminish because these other things are holding it back.
Exactly. The marginal returns get capped by the slowest, stickiest part of the whole system.
And it looks like the financial markets, the prediction markets, they seem to be reflecting this more skeptical, slower view.
Yeah, if you look at the actual market data right now, things like real interest rates, overall stock market valuations, even volatility levels, they remain, as one source put it, sortlingly normal.
Huh. Normal.
Normal. These markets are definitely not pricing in some kind of imminent, radical, super fast growth explosion that you hear about sometimes. The people putting actual money on the line, they seem to be signaling that, yeah, this is going to be a tough slog. It plays out over decades, not just a few years.
Okay, so shifting gears a bit. If the bottleneck isn't purely computational smarts anymore, then we need to talk about what is truly scarce. And the source material really pushes back on the idea that just having a high IQ is the main thing driving success.
Yeah, it's fascinating, actually, when you look at labor market data. The actual return on just having a high IQ in isolation, it's surprisingly low. It's not the biggest predictor of success, not by a long shot.
So success isn't just about being super intelligent in one area.
No, it seems to be much more about a combination of things, a sort of bundle of attributes that are uniquely human and still very scarce.
What kind of things are in this bundle?
Well, the idea presented is less about being a perfect 10 out of 10 across the board. It's more like being very competent, maybe an 8 or 9 out of 10 in a whole bunch of different areas: communication, teamwork, reliability, general skills.
Okay, broad competence.
Right. Plus having maybe one area where you are truly world-class, like an 11.5 out of 10, some unique spike. And you need high determination, grit, the drive to actually execute and push through obstacles.
That whole package, broad confidence, unique talent, plus serious drive. That's the scarce thing.
That seems to be the argument. That complete bundle is what's rare, and it's something that even very powerful AI, for now, can't fully replicate, especially the execution and determination part.
That execution gap, that feels like the real limiter. It reminds me of that example, I think it was in the source material, about something really basic like clean water.
Absolutely. That's a powerful illustration. Think about parts of sub-Saharan Africa where reliable, clean water is still tragically scarce. The intelligence needed to solve that problem. The engineering, the hydrology, the planning. It's not scarce. We've known how to do that for generations.
So what's missing?
It's everything else. The political systems, the institutions, the funding mechanisms, the maintenance culture, the sustained will to actually implement the solution and keep it running. AI faces the exact same kinds of human and systemic barriers. Intelligence isn't enough.
And sometimes getting those human systems to change requires something AI definitely can't provide on its own. Institutional courage, leadership.
That's a critical pivot point. Certain leaders, maybe founders like, say, Mark Zuckerberg pushing the metaverse pivot, or even cultural groups like the original Beatles challenging norms. They're crucial because they sort of economize on courage.
Economize on courage. How so?
They have the authority or the vision or just the sheer conviction to force massive, difficult changes through all that institutional resistance and fear. Without that kind of, founding energy or focused leadership, big shifts just stall out. People resist.
Okay, so if courage and execution are scarce, what about the underlying talent pool itself? The material we looked at suggests something interesting is happening to human talent. It's not static, it's actually becoming more polarized, increasing variance.
Yeah, that was one of the more sobering findings, I thought. The analysis points towards the very top end of the distribution getting much, much better. Think about young people today in fields like competitive chess or theoretical science or certain kinds of coding. They are just incredibly sophisticated, far more impressive in some ways than previous generations at the same age.
Okay, so the top is getting higher. But where's the increasing variance coming from then? It implies something else is happening too.
The problem seems to be the middle, that thick middle, the group that's, above the bottom performers, but not at the absolute elite level. The evidence suggests that group might be declining in overall competence.
Really?
Yeah, and that might be feeding into this general feeling you hear sometimes about a competency crisis. Now, part of this could be lingering effects from the pandemic, and there are signs of slow recovery there. But the longer-term trend seems to show this widening gap. especially if you look at things like mid-level management quality or leadership effectiveness in large organizations.
So AI might make the top performers even better, but it doesn't automatically fix the problems in the middle or lift the bottom significantly, maybe apart from specific skills.
It seems that way. It could even exacerbate the variance in some respects.
All right, so let's weave these threads together. We have this picture of a decades-long kind of tough slog for AI to really integrate economically and institutionally. But at the same time, the intellectual progress of AI itself seems incredibly fast.
That's the fascinating contradiction, isn't it?
Tell us more about that acceleration. The sources suggest AI models are like already better than top human experts in some really complex fields.
That's the claim, and it's pretty striking. One expert basically said, look, if we held an economics Olympics today and put me up against a top model like OpenAI's O3, the AI would probably win.
Wow, okay.
But it's not just about crunching numbers or abstract theory. These models are apparently getting good at things we think of as deeply human, like offering empathetic, nuanced analysis of, say, a classical music piece. The example given was Sibelius's First Symphony. The AI could provide insights that rivaled or even surpassed most human critics.
That's something else. But there's a flip side to this immense intellectual power, right? A positive social impact that maybe gets overlooked. This idea of AI as an equalizer.
Yes, absolutely. This is a huge positive feedback loop that's already happening. AI can provide pretty good, essentially free, advice on things like basic medical questions, legal information, even mental wellness or therapeutic coaching to anyone with a smartphone.
And that helps everyone.
Well, crucially, studies are showing that this kind of AI assistance provides the biggest performance boost to those who start out as lower achievers. It helps bring people who are below the median up towards the median.
So it levels the playing field somewhat.
Functionally, yes. It acts to raise the floor, which is a massive positive social effect. It often gets drowned out by the, understandable anxieties about job displacement at the top end.
Okay, that's a really important positive point. But if the economic change is slow, like we discussed, what's the fastest, most profound change we should brace for? The deep dives seem to point towards something more existential.
I think that's right. The really rapid shifts, the truly profound ones coming soon, might be less about the economy and more about, well, us, our identity. The prediction from our sources is that by 2030, maybe even sooner, AI won't just be a tool. It will fundamentally challenge what it means to be human.
How so? What does that challenge look like?
It could trigger a pretty severe identity crisis for a lot of people.
It's because the AI will just seem so knowledgeable, so capable across so many domains that it feels infallible.
Exactly. That's the potential psychological impact.
Yeah.
Some people might very quickly start seeing these AIs as oracles, perfect, unbiased sources of truth. And it's not a huge leap from there, in some circles, maybe religious or quasi-religious ones, to viewing them as something more, maybe even like gods.
Wow. That's a heavy thought.
It is. And it's not just some sci-fi fantasy. This is about a potentially rapid shift in where people place their trust, away from human experts, maybe away from traditional institutions, towards non-human intelligence. And that has huge political and cultural implications, obviously.
So, given that potential future, where AI is smarter, faster, maybe seen as an oracle, and it's potentially immortal because its knowledge persists, how should we, as people who create things, think about our own work? There was a stunning strategy suggested by one expert.
Yeah, that was really provocative. The recommendation was basically start thinking of the AI as your primary audience, maybe even your most important audience.
Wait, write for the AI, not for other people.
Well, the expert put it something like this. He said his latest books are written mostly for the AIs. He's happy if humans read them, of course, but he sees the AI systems as the ultimate immortal consumers and repositories of his ideas.
It's kind of mind-bending. It's like treating the AI as the ultimate historian, the ultimate library.
Or the new Google, yeah.
Yeah.
The ultimate indexing machine that will shape future understanding. So if you want your ideas, your contributions, your perspective to have lasting influence, you need to write for them. Now,
how did you even do that?
By making sure your work is incredibly clear, logically robust, well-structured, basically optimized so that the AI accurately captures, understands, and correctly represents your contribution in its vast knowledge base.
Yeah.
It's about actively shaping how you'll be perceived by this emerging intelligence. It's a path to a kind of intellectual immortality.
Okay, let's try to wrap this up. We've landed on this really powerful central conflict today, haven't we? On one hand, AI's raw intellectual power is just rocketing ahead, already beating human experts in some areas.
Right, incredibly fast on that front.
But on the other hand, getting that power to actually diffuse through our economy, through our institutions, that's going to be, as you said, a tough slog, playing out over decades. Much more like, say, the printing press or electricity than like an overnight app craze.
Exactly. Slow, messy, complicated adoption.
So what this really means then is that the focus maybe shouldn't be so much on the tech itself anymore, but on the human systems that have to receive it.
That's the inescapable conclusion, I think. The next really big battles aren't going to be fought over algorithms or processing power. They're going to be regulatory battles, cultural clashes, political fights. We should probably expect massive resistance, frankly, as people push back against changes to the world they know, the world they were trained for.
It's that human resistance, that institutional friction that ultimately sets the real pace of change.
The systems are sticky, maybe frozen in some areas. That's the core challenge ahead.
So if AI is becoming this incredibly powerful intellectual companion, maybe even our ultimate historian, the final thought we want to leave you with is this. What are you writing or saying or creating today, specifically with that new, potentially immortal audience in mind? Are you shaping the history that it will remember?